Hey, welcome to the next video. I want to talk about Vice President Joe Biden and Democratic nominee for president, his speech at the DNC. Now, the coverage of the speech was pretty positive on all media sources. So, Fox News praised him for his speech because a lot of people were expecting some sort of cognitive meltdown or a flub or like problem speaking or like to be uninspiring or, as President Trump would like to say, sleepy, but none of that came through in this speech. Now, in general, the speech included a lot of parts about bringing people together, representing all of America, civility. There was a little bit of policy included in this speech, and let's have a listen and comment on some portions of it.
Good evening. Ella Baker, a giant of the civil rights movement, left us with this wisdom: give people light, and they will find the way.
So a few parts of the speech were somewhat kind of like moralistic. So give people light and they will find the way. So he's pertaining to be the candidate that is the answer to all of the hatred and darkness. And certainly, Joe Biden does not encourage violence in the same way that President Trump does. So it may be a little over the top to say all this stuff about fighting or encouraging the light and fighting darkness, but there's truth there, although it could be taken a little cheesily based on how you interpret it.
Give people light. Those are words for our time. The current president has cloaked American darkness for much too long. Too much anger, too much fear, too much division. Here and now, I give you my word. If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. I will be an ally of the light, not the darkness. It's time for us, for we the people,
Unity.
to come together. And make no mistake, united we can and will overcome this season of darkness in America. We'll choose hope over fear, facts over fiction, fairness over privilege. I'm a proud Democrat.
Now, in general, this would normally be not a profound statement, but choosing facts over fiction in today's day, in today's world, that's a profound statement, believe it or not, because we do have a problem with fake information. Now, there's plenty of fake information on left-wing media too, but particularly with the conspiracy theories online and QAnon and such, right-wing conspiracy theories have taken a whole nother level of being completely fraudulent and made up. Now, the reason they catch on with some people is they do have nuggets of truth in there, but beyond that, it's completely fake.
And I'll be proud to carry the banner of our party into the general election. So it's with great honor and humility I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America. But while I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president.
He brings this up in
I'll work hard
moments.
for those who didn't support me, as hard for them as I did for those who did vote for me. That's the job of a president, to represent.
This was praised in the media because there is a particular thing where President Trump there were some leaks about his administration purposely not worrying about blue states, kind of skipping them over. No need to send them aid for this thing that might have happened because it's a blue state. My voters aren't there. Essentially, if it's a solid blue, he wouldn't help. So that should be infuriating to the average person if you go on party lines like that, kind of dividing the US of A.
Represent all of us, not just our base or our party. This is not a partisan moment. This must be an American moment. It's a moment that calls for hope and light and love, hope for our future, light to see our way forward, and love for one another. America isn't just a collection of clashing interests of red states or blue states. We're so much bigger than that. We're so much better than that. You know, nearly a century ago, Franklin Roosevelt pledged a New Deal in a time of massive unemployment, uncertainty, and fear. Stricken by a disease, stricken by a virus, FDR insisted that he would recover and prevail, and he believed America could as well. And he did, and we can as well. This campaign isn't just...
So this is a little bit of a outreach to progressives in referencing FDR, but we have to see if he gets any further into the policy specifics. I don't think he references Green New Deal in this speech, which would be the modern day version of FDR's New Deal. I don't think he does, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's about winning votes. It's about winning the heart and, yes, the soul of America. Winning it for the generous among us, not the selfish. Winning it for workers who keep this country going, not just the privileged few at the top. Winning it for those communities who have known the injustice of a knee on the neck. For all the young people who have known only America being rising inequity and shrinking opportunity. They deserve the experience of America's promise. They deserve to experience it in full. You know, no generation ever knows what history will ask of it. All we can ever know is whether we're ready when that moment arrives. And now history has delivered us to one of the most difficult moments America's ever faced. Four historic crises, all at the same time. A perfect storm. The worst pandemic in over 100 years. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The most compelling call for racial justice since the 60s. And the undeniable realities and just the accelerating threats of climate change.
So, pandemic, economy, racial justice, and climate change. If there are policy proposals for those areas, I mean, in some ways we've ignored those things for too long, on both sides. Although President Trump exacerbates the situation, they've been ignored in some ways. And we need bigger solutions to these problems.
So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be. You know, all elections are important. But we know in our bones this one is more consequential. As many have said, America is at an inflection point, a time of real peril, but also of extraordinary possibilities. We can choose a path of becoming angrier, less hopeful, more divided, a path of shadow and suspicion, or we can choose a different path and together take this chance to heal, to reform, to unite.
One thing I'm curious about is, I assume Obama had a bunch of speech writers, and I'm curious if they also assisted in this speech, because I think it is pretty well written, and the although in many cases it does leave out policy. Now, the media, as I said earlier, praised the speech because expectations were not high for this speech, and for sure he crushed the expectations.
Path of hope and light. This is a life-changing election. This will determine what America is going to look like for a long, long time. Character is on the ballot. Compassion is on the ballot. Decency, science, democracy, they're all on the ballot. Who we are as a nation, what we stand for, and most importantly, who we want to be, that's all on the ballot. And the choice could not be more clear. No rhetoric is needed. Just judge this president on the facts. 5 million Americans infected by COVID-19. More than 170,000 Americans have died. By far the worst performance of any nation on earth. More than 50 million people have filed for unemployment this year. More than 10 million people.
Concerning the number of COVID deaths, there was, I believe, a criticism by Trump of Michelle Obama. I think it was Michelle Obama, where she said 150,000 deaths in her speech. And so Trump said, no, that's a pre-taped speech. You're so wrong. 20,000 more died. And it's like a weird defense because he's like, the president should be happy if the number's lower. So like if she flubbed the number lower, that actually looks good for him in a weird way. But he jumped on it to say that 20,000 more were killed. Like if he's proud in a weird way. He like didn't think that response through. But anyway, Joe did get the number correct in his speech.
Are going to lose their health insurance this year. Nearly 1 in 6 small businesses have closed this year. And this president, if he's reelected, you know what will happen. Cases and deaths will remain far too high. More mom and pop businesses will close their doors, and this time for good.
COVID-19 is, as of today, when I'm recording this, the third leading cause of death in the United States compared to 2017's numbers. 176,000 beats the 170,000 accidental deaths in 2017. Number 1 death in 2017 was heart disease. Number 2, cancer.
Working families will struggle to get by. And yet the wealthiest 1% will get tens of billions of dollars in new tax breaks. And the assault on the Affordable Care Act will continue until it's destroyed, taking insurance away from more than 20 million people, including more than 15 million people on Medicaid, and getting rid of the protections that President Obama worked so hard to get passed for people who have 100 million more people who have pre-existing conditions. And speaking of President Obama, a man I was honored to serve alongside for 8 years as vice president, let me take this moment to say something we don't say nearly enough. Thank you, Mr. President.
In so many times in his career, Joe Biden gushes over his affection for Barack Obama. I remember during their presidency, there were a lot of memes about that as well online.
You were a great president, a president our children could and did look up to. No one's going to say that about the current occupant of the White House. What we know about this president is if he's given 4 more years, he'll be what he's been for the last 4 years. A president who takes no responsibility, refuses to lead, blames others, cozies up to dictators, and fans the flames of hate and division. He'll wake up every day believing the job is all about him, never about you. Is that the American you want for you, your family, your children? I see a different American, one that's generous and strong, selfless and humble. It's an America we can rebuild together. As president, the first step I will take will be to get control of the virus that has ruined so many lives. Because I understand something this president hasn't from the beginning. We will never get our economy back on track.
I assume he
We will never get our
wants a
kids
national
safely
mask
back in
mandate,
schools.
which he's talked
We'll
about in
never
recent
have our
days.
lives back until we deal with this virus. The tragedy of where we are today is it didn't have to be this bad. Just look around. It's not this bad in Canada or Europe or Japan or almost anywhere else in the world. And the president keeps telling us the virus is going to disappear. He keeps waiting for a miracle. Well, I have news for him. No miracle is coming. We lead the world in confirmed cases.
That's harsh, saying directly to the president, no miracle is coming.
The world in deaths. Our economy is in tatters with Black, Latino, Asian American, Native American communities bearing the brunt of it. And after all this time, the president still does not have a plan. Well, I do. If I'm your president, on day 1, we'll implement the national strategy I've been laying out since March. We'll develop and deploy rapid tests with results available immediately. We'll make the medical supplies and protective equipment that our
We
country
do need better
needs.
tests.
And we'll make them here in America, so we will never again be at the mercy of China or other foreign countries in order to protect our own people. We'll make sure our schools have the resources they need to be open, safe, and effective. We'll put politics aside. We'll take the muzzle off our experts so the public gets the information they need and deserve. Honest, unvarnished truth. They can handle it. We'll have a national mandate to wear masks, not as a burden, but as a patriotic duty to protect one another. In short, we'll do what we should have done from the very beginning. Our current president has failed in his most basic duty to the nation. He's failed to protect us. He's failed to protect America. And my fellow Americans, that is unforgivable. As president, I'll make you a promise. I'll protect America. I will defend us from every attack, seen and unseen, always, without exception, every time.
In a few moments, in a few spots, he may go a little overboard on the insisting that he will protect. It could be a bit much at times.
Look, I understand. I understand how hard it is to have any hope right now. On this summer night, let me take a moment to speak to those of you who have lost the most. I have some idea how it feels to lose someone you love. I know that deep black hole that opens up in the middle of your chest and you feel like you're being sucked into it. I know how mean and cruel and unfair life can be sometimes. But I've learned two things. First, your loved one may have left this earth, but they'll never leave your heart. They'll always be with you. You'll always hear them. And second, I found the best way through pain and loss and grief is to find purpose. As God's children, each of us have a purpose in our lives. We have a great purpose as a nation to open the doors of opportunity to all Americans, to save our democracy, to be a light to the world once again, and finally to live up to and make real.
Especially after this speech, you can't really claim that Joe is not a religious person, because he certainly is and invokes God in multiple scenarios, as well as the light and having a purpose, and your loved ones are always with you. So he's very religious. And so those attacks are not effective to say he's not a man of faith.
The words written in the sacred documents that founded this nation, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, my dad was an honorable, decent man. He got knocked down a few times pretty hard, but he always got back up. He worked hard, and he built a great middle-class life for our family. He used to say, Joey, I don't expect the government to solve my problems, but I sure in hell expect them to understand them. And then he'd say, Joey, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. I've never forgotten those lessons. That's why my economic plan is all about jobs, dignity, respect, and community. Together we can and will rebuild our economy. And when we do, we'll not only build back, we'll build back better. With modern roads, bridges, highways.
So I believe that's his slogan, the Build Back Better, which he slipped in there.
Broadband, ports and airports as a new foundation for economic growth, with pipes that transport clean water to every community, with 5 million new manufacturing and technology jobs, so the future is made in America. With a healthcare system that lowers premiums, deductibles, drug prices, by building on the Affordable Care Act he's trying to rip away. with an education system that trains our people for the best jobs of the 21st century. There's not a single thing American workers can't do. And where cost doesn't prevent young people from going to college and student debt doesn't crush them when they get out. With a child care and elder care system that makes it possible for parents to go to work and for the elderly to stay in their homes with dignity. With an immigration system that powers our economy and reflects.
I think he did have a plan specifically lined out for childcare.
Our values. And with newly empowered labor unions, they're the ones that built the middle class. With equal pay for women, with rising wages, you can raise a child.
Basically, for a lot of the policies, you have to go and look in more detail as he glosses over the detail here, which I guess makes sense in some ways, but we probably should have deep dived a little more.
Child on, a family on. And yes, we're going to do more than praise our essential workers. We're finally going to pay them. Pay them. We can and we will deal with climate change. It's not only a crisis, it's an enormous opportunity. An opportunity for America to lead the world in clean energy and create millions of new, good-paying jobs in the process. And we can pay for these investments by ending loopholes, unnecessary loopholes, and the president's $1.3 trillion tax giveaway to the wealthiest 1% and the biggest, most profitable corporations, some of which do not pay any tax at all. Because we don't need a tax code that rewards.
This sort of rhetoric, I don't think I ever heard from Hillary Clinton. She was especially cozy with the corporations. I'd have to go back and look or find references. But I don't think she ever said anything to this point. Right now, he's invoking his inner Bernie Sanders for a moment. Not quite as authentic as that, but close.
Wealth more than it rewards work. I'm not looking to punish anyone. Far from it. But it's long past time the wealthiest people and the biggest corporations in this country paid their fair share. And for our seniors, Social Security is a sacred obligation, a sacred promise made. They paid for. The current president is threatening to break that promise. He's proposing to eliminate a tax that pays for almost half the Social Security without any.
Yeah, I believe that's payroll tax. He was saying that he's going to suspend it during coronavirus, possibly get rid of it. But if you get rid of that, there's no funding for Social Security. So, and then when asked about it, he would just dodge and say that the money's coming from somewhere else. But that's simply not accurate. It's not coming from somewhere else. It's coming from the payroll tax.
Any way of making up for that?
That was President Trump dodging that question. I meant, in case it was unclear, dodging the question about payroll tax. Getting rid of that would defund Social Security.
That lost revenue, resulting in cuts. I will not let that happen. If I'm your president, we're going to protect Social Security and Medicare. You have my word. One of the most powerful voices we hear in the country today is from our young people. They're speaking to the inequity and injustice that has grown up in America. Economic injustice, racial injustice, environmental injustice. I hear their voices. If you listen, you can hear them too. And whether it's the existential threat posed by climate change, the daily fear of being gunned down in school, or the inability to get started in your first job, it will be the work of the next president to restore the promise of America to everyone. And I'm not going to have to do it alone, because I'll have a great vice president at my side. Senator Kamala Harris, she's a powerful voice for this nation. Her story is the American story. She knows about all the obstacles thrown in the way of so many in our country. Women, Black Americans, South Asian Americans, immigrants, the left out and the left behind. But she's overcome every obstacle she's ever faced. No one's been tougher on the big banks and the gun lobby. No one's been tougher in calling out the current administration for its extremism.
Kamala was a proponent of the Green New Deal, but I believe she backed out of that at some point before becoming VP nominee.
It's failure to follow the law. It's failure to simply tell the truth. Kamala and I both draw from our families. That's where we get our strength. For Kamala, it's Doug and their families. For me, it's Jill and ours. I've said many times, no man deserves one great love in his life, let alone two. But I've known two. After losing my first wife in that car accident, Jill came into my life. She put our family back together. She's an educator, a mom, a military mom, and an unstoppable force. If she puts her mind to it, just get out of the way. She's going to get it done. She was a great second lady, and I know she'll make a great first lady for this nation. She loves this country so much. And I'll always have the strength that can only come from family. Hunter, Ashley, all our grandchildren, my brothers, my sister, they give me courage. They lift me up. While he's no longer with us, Bo inspires me every day. Bo served our nation in uniform. A year in Iraq, a decorated Iraqi war veteran. So I take very personally and the profound responsibility of serving as Commander-in-Chief.
Some people were suggesting that he would take some of this family pain and endorse a more progressive healthcare reform. He certainly says he will build on Obamacare, and we'll see specifically where that ends up if he does get a chance to.
I'll be a president who will stand with our allies and friends and make it clear to our adversaries the days of cozying up to dictators is over. Under President Biden, America will not turn a blind eye to Russian bounties on the heads of American soldiers.
That's a big one. There was no response from President Trump about the Russian bounties and about why they weren't addressed at all. So Russians were being paid to kill U.S. soldiers, and there was no response no discussion of that with the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Nor will I put up with foreign interference in our most sacred democratic exercise, voting. And I'll always stand for our values of human rights and dignity.
The points on voting, yeah, I mean, that's one of the big reasons for actually supporting Biden over Trump, regardless of party, because there's been dramatic attack on voting and the institution of democracy. And that is fundamental to our system. That's constitutional. That's been around since 1776. So that is one of the reasons that I would say it seems that prominent Republicans have come across the aisle for the Democrats, and also for the endorsements, and there's been a lot of people coming out about explaining why they are distancing from Trump. Although more so it's people who aren't in politics actively anymore, because it's safer for them to distance. So the people actively involved in politics are not distancing as much. And it may damage their careers for sure by not distancing from Trump.
I'll work in common purpose for a more secure, peaceful, and prosperous world. History has thrust one more urgent task on us. Will we be the generation that finally wipes out the stain of racism from our national character? I believe we're up to it. I believe we're ready. Just a week ago yesterday was the 3rd anniversary of the events in Charlottesville. Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists coming out of fields with lighted torches, veins bulging, spewing the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. Remember the violent clash that ensued between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. And remember what the president said when asked? He said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides.
That's one thing that President Trump has made him unique, is he sticks to the controversy intentionally. So if there's a group which is not often represented, such as Nazis or Klansmen, he gets as close as accepting their opinions as he possibly can, and sometimes does say that he's supportive directly, unless he's highly pressured to change his mind. Well, he certainly is contradictory at times, but he goes as far as to nearly accept their support, and then under pressure he may turn it down at different interviews and such.
It was a wake-up call for us as a country, and for me, a call to action. At that moment, I knew I'd have to run, because my father taught us that silence was complicity, and I could never remain silent or complicit. At the time, I said we're in the battle for the soul of this nation, and we are. You know, one of the most important conversations I've had this entire campaign, it was with someone who was much too young to vote. I met with 6-year-old Gianna Floyd the day before her daddy, George Floyd, was laid to rest. She's an incredibly brave little girl. And I'll never forget it. When I leaned down to speak to her, she looked in my eyes and she said, and I quote, "Daddy changed the world. Daddy changed the world." Her words burrowed deep into my heart. Maybe George Floyd's murder was a breaking point. Maybe John Lewis's passing the inspiration. But however it's come to be, however it's happened, America's ready, in John's words, to lay down, quote, the heavy burden of hate at last, and to end the hard work of rooting out our systemic racism. You know, American history tells us that it's been in our darkest moments that we've made our greatest progress, that we found the light. In this dark moment, I believe we're poised to make great progress again, that we can find the light once more.
He frequently talks about finding the light in the darkness, and it may be a bit much with that metaphor, but it certainly is somewhat inspiring when you haven't heard a high-profile official, you know, or somebody close to being president, when you haven't heard that in nearly 4 years.
You know, many people have heard me say this, but I've always believed you can define America in one word: possibilities. The defining feature of America: everything is possible. That in America, everyone, and I mean everyone, should be given an opportunity to go as far as their dreams and God-given ability will take them. We can never lose that. In times as challenging as these, I believe there's only one way forward. As a united America, united in our pursuit of a more perfect union, united in our dreams of a better future for us and for our children, united in our determination to make the coming years bright. Are you ready? I believe we are. This is a great nation. We're a good and decent people. For Lord's sake, this is the United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been able to accomplish when we've done it together. The Irish poet Seamus Heaney once wrote, "History says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. This is our moment to make hope and history rhyme. With passion and purpose, let us begin, you and I together, one nation, under God, united in our love for America, united in our love for each other. For love is more powerful than hate, hope is more powerful than fear, and light is more powerful than dark. This is our moment, this is our mission. May history be able to say that the end of this chapter of American darkness began here tonight, as love and hope and light join in the battle for the soul of the nation. And this is a battle we will win, and we'll do it together. I promise you. Thank you, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Good night.
Hey.
Thank you very much if you watched this through to the end with me. I appreciate you coming along and hearing the commentary. Definitely do subscribe and like the video. Drop a comment, I'll reply. And some of the key things here is he definitely crushed expectations. Expectations were not high. He talked about light out of darkness, climate change, systemic racism, social justice. Talked about economic justice and a variety of other topics. He tried to stay inspirational, talked about unity. So, crushed expectations, and even Fox News acknowledged that to the dismay of its viewers and to other commentators that were invited on their show. So, thanks again for watching.